So let's get started. So first of all, if, thank you for being here today. I know it's a Saturday and you probably prefer to be outside in beautiful weather than sitting here in front of a Zoom call again. I think we're all exhausted after 2 years of COVID and so many Zoom meetings and things, but thank you for joining me today. And so for those that don't know me, my name is Adey-Jones and I'm a 3 principles practitioner, and my area that I love to work in, due to my own personal experience, is in the area of codependency and narcissistic abuse. And so today's subject is how we as codependents inadvertently attract narcissists to us. So as I said, this is a subject's very close to my heart. It's because, for the first 50 years of my life, before I came across the principles, I suffered from codependency and narcissistic abuse. I was in 30 years of therapy, which helped me immensely. I'm not against therapy, but it was really coming across the principles that I say was the as I call it, the cherry on top of the sundae. When it hello, M. Thank you for joining us. And so, oh gosh, lots of people are coming in here. So yeah, so before we begin, I want to do a couple of disclaimers. And one is, as a 3 principles practitioner, we definitely don't label and pigeonhole and put people in boxes. So I am not doing that. I am using the words codependency and narcissism as a shorthand to describe a set of behaviors that people are, or thinking that people are engaging in, that are getting in the way of us living, incredible lives and having happy and healthy relationships. And secondly, I'm not blaming the victim when I say that codependents attract narcissists to us. On the contrary, most of us that have codependent tendencies grew up in a dysfunctional environment where we actually were victims, where we may have suffered from abuse or abandonment or neglect. And what happens is, to survive these painful childhoods, we develop certain coping mechanisms or survival mechanisms that are really great when we're children. They help us survive these environments. But what happens is, if we don't recognize them, they start to become a fabric of our being, in the fabric of our being, and they are causing us to sort of have certain behaviors that really are attractive to narcissists. And again, as I say, narcissists, I'm not going to go around and say narcissistic behavior all the time, so I'm going to use a shorthand of narcissist or codependency. So if we don't address these things, they are actually, as I say, running the show from behind the scenes. So it's really important that we look at these things and we see them. We see that they're not us, they're not our personality. And more importantly, once we see them, we can let go of them, we can be free of them, and we can have a healthier sense of self. So I'm going to take a look at 5 of the most common traits that codependency that we are engaging in, unbeknownst to us. And these are, so number 1 are codependency, or codependents rather, suffer from low self-esteem. Usually when we've grown up in a traumatic childhood, we never get to develop a healthy sense of self. Our parents' neglect had us believe that we weren't worthy of being cared for or loved, that we weren't good enough. And as a result, we have this sort of bottomless pit of need. We need to feel that we are worthy. So we constantly look to the outside for validation. We want other people to affirm us because we can't do it from within. And so why narcissists are particularly attracted to this is that they believe that they are superior to everybody else. So they really like it that we look to them for validation, that they feel that we worship them and we admire them and we put them on a pedestal, that we see them as better than us. So what can also happen is, I know I'm talking, we have men here and women here, and I'm talking about just in certain situations, the narcissist, again, as I said, could be male or female, likes to rescue. They like to swoop in. If they sense that somebody has low self-esteem, they want to come in and rescue. But what ends up happening, that's all great in the beginning, but then they can turn on you because they don't respect you. So be very careful of wanting somebody to rescue you. That's an absolute red flag, or rather an attraction to a narcissistic type. So what the principles helped me see in this particular area was that all that insecure thinking that was in my head that was telling me that I wasn't worthy, or I wasn't as good as anybody else, or I wasn't good enough, or I wasn't strong, I wasn't capable, I wasn't lovable, all these things that were going on in my head. Number one, were not true. That's just energy moving through us. That's not telling us who we are by any means. Some of these thoughts have been around for so long that I certainly believed they were telling me who I was. I didn't know that I didn't have to believe these thoughts. So, and what the principles tell us, or show us rather, is that we're all created equal. None of us come into this world of form any better or any less than anybody else. And when I saw the truth of this, I stopped looking for other people to complete me. Sorry, somebody else is coming in. I stopped, because before, as I said, my self-esteem was so low that if I saw a narcissistic type, a strong, confident type, I would be like, oh my God, they complete me. They have qualities that I don't have. And what happens, when you do that is, as I say, you look for these strong, domineering type of people to complete you. And so when I saw that the principles, would you all mind muting yourself? See if I can mute you. Sorry, I'm going to mute over here. So as I said, so once I saw the principles and I saw that I didn't need anybody to complete me, that I had everything I needed within myself, that I was equal to everybody else, that, again, just simply knowing that had narcissists sort of not be attracted to me. And then the second thing that codependencies, people that suffer from codependency can believe, and not just codependents, everybody actually that doesn't know the understanding of the principles, is that our happiness and security come from the outside in. We believe that, again, as if we grow up in a dysfunctional environment, we have this huge fear of abandonment, because often our parents were unpredictable, or they either suffered from some sort of substance abuse, or maybe they may have even been narcissists themselves, or for whatever reason they weren't fully present and available to us. So as children, we feared abandonment terribly. And as I say, as children, we need a responsible adult to take care of us. We can't survive on our own. But when we carry this belief into our adulthood, I mean, when you think about it, we can't be abandoned as adults. We can all fend for ourselves. So, but when we have this unhealed part of ourselves that has this fear of abandonment and believing that our security is coming from another person, we start to depend on them. Even if we're in an abusive situation, we believe that we can't make it on our own, that we need them. And that has us going into denial, has us minimizing what's going on, just because we actually believe that we can't live without this other person. So why narcissists are attracted to this is because, they can be very selfish, self-centered. They only think of themselves. So when they sense that somebody is dependent on them, they're more prone to sort of their emotional outbursts, or being disrespectful, or being even aggressive and dominant, because they know that we're not going to leave. They sense that we're dependent on them, and they take advantage of that. So what the principles helped me see was that we live in this inside out world, not an outside in world. And that love and security and happiness that I kept thinking was coming from another person on the outside was actually coming from within me. And the more that I looked in this direction, I was able to see that that I didn't have to depend on another person to feel all these emotions for myself. And the other thing that I saw was that, sorry, I'm just yeah, just that I didn't need to put up with an abusive situation, that I had everything I needed within me to cope on my own, which, you know, and there were some situations where I look back on my life and I think, oh my God, I cannot believe I stayed in that situation thinking that they were stronger or more powerful than me. Now I look back and I think, oh my God, the need to dominate and control comes from a place of fear. And I actually was just as strong and capable as they were. So the other thing that we do, that we attract narcissists into our lives, is codependents can tend to be people pleasers. Again, you know, when we've had a childhood where we may have been neglected or shamed for having normal childhood needs, you know, we learn to sort of, we get the message to be needless and wantless. You know, I know in my case, for sure, my mother was overwhelmed, and you know, I felt I was a bother to her if I had normal childhood needs and wants. And therefore, I felt a lot of shame around having those needs and wants, and I would shove them down. And then I got the message, whether it was right or wrong, but in my little mind, my message was, oh, when I'm needless and wantless, I'm not a bother, and people will love me and they won't abandon me. So what happens is when we meet, you know, we go into a new relationship and we say maybe, you know, meet a narcissist, and I remember, you know, pretending to be so cool and needless and wantless. You know, I was a perfect beacon for a narcissist, because all they care about is their needs getting met. They need to be the center of attention. You know, it has to be a one-way street. It's all about them. So what the principles help me see is that I shouldn't have had any shame around, you know, having needs and wants. You know, if we don't have needs and wants, then we could die as children. We have to be seen and heard. We have to be taken care of and nurtured. So suppressing that part of ourselves to secure love is number one, it's very damaging to ourselves. And secondly, as I say, it's a beacon for somebody that really wants a relationship that's a one-way street, which makes it all about them. You know, they don't want to compete with you. If you have equal needs and wants, it's not as attractive to them. So that's the other thing that we really need to pay attention to. And another one is weak boundaries. Again, it keeps coming from the same place of if we grew up in a narcissistic environment or a traumatic environment or a dysfunctional environment, our boundaries were often violated. We didn't feel we had a right to our feelings. We didn't even, some of us didn't have a right to our own bodies. So we grew up with this really sort of porous boundaries. And again, to be loved, we often, as much as it was painful to have our boundaries violated, we sort of shoved that down or moved, as I say, moved the goalposts. Gosh, we're having a few people joining in here late. So, but we start to move those goalposts to accommodate, you know, abusive behavior, because we're so afraid of being alone. And again, it's a belief from childhood that's just not true. As I said, adults cannot be abandoned. We are much, much stronger than we realize. And we don't have to suffer somebody sort of moving the boundaries or pushing against our boundaries. You know, often a narcissistic type will feel powerful, that they're able to sort of stomp all over your boundaries, and, you know, it gives them a sense of power. So what the principles really help me to see too is that my boundaries deserve to be respected, and that I deserve to be seen and seen and listened to. And I also deserved to hold people accountable. I was very sort of, that was the other thing. It was like overly forgiving. It's like, if you hurt me, it was like, everything's okay. Everything's okay. I always used to say, I have a sister that's a year older than me. And I used to say that she used to walk around and sort of, you know, be the queen from Alice in Wonderland, like, off with your head. And I was always running around behind them, like stitching heads back on, trying to fix everything, trying to make everything okay, when clearly things weren't okay. Or when, you know, I was abused as a child, again, thinking that, you know, I didn't want to cause problems or anything like that. You know, again, that lack of boundaries, that lack of sense of self, that lack of believing that I had a right to myself. So again, as I say, the principles really help me with that. When we're in a relationship with a narcissist and we have a boundary, sometimes they'll gaslight us. They'll tell us that what we're seeing and feeling is not true. And that can really mess with our head. We start to self-doubt. We start to think we're going crazy. But when we see that we all have this incredible wisdom within us, this wisdom that is going to guide us, it has our back, it tells the truth, we can trust it. We don't have to listen to the words of somebody else that's not matching their actions. We can trust our wisdom when it tells us this is not right, this doesn't feel right, and we are being abused. And the fifth one that we do is, as codependents, we tend to, again, this keeps stemming back. As I said, the foundation of codependency is there's a fear of abandonment and the shame for having normal childhood needs. So what we tend to do, again, is as codependents, we look for security in our relationships. That we believe that, you know, if we're necessary to another person or if they need us, that helps secure that relationship. It helps secure their love for us. So what we tend to do is, instead of giving like 100%, we give 150%. We overdo everything. We keep giving and giving and giving. Even if we're not receiving anything in return, we just keep giving because we believe that's the only way that we deserve to be loved, is by being of use to somebody or making them happy. So again, as I said, narcissists love this. You know, they love to be the center of attention. They love to have the world evolve around them. So if they're, you know, attracted to somebody, you know, you've got somebody over here that gives 100% and somebody over here that gives 150%, they're going to go for the 150%, because that means they're going to get most of the attention is going to be on them, and they don't have to share that limelight, and it doesn't have to be a reciprocal relationship. It's a one-way street. So what the principles help me see is that, you know, not only was I equal to everybody else is equal to me. And that when we innocently believe that people need us, that's not true. They don't need us. I know I'm sounding a little black and white here. We all need each other in a healthy way. But I'm talking about when we look at somebody else as, oh, this is painful, this is abusive, but they need me, I can't leave. I hear that so often from people. They think even though they're unhappy in their relationships, even though they feel they're not getting the love and respect they deserve, they have believed that the other person needs them, and it's their responsibility to stay in an abusive relationship because the other person needs them. And again, what the principles teaches us is that we are all born with the same amount of well-being and resilience and wisdom within us. And often when we get into rescue mode, because we're doing it because we, as I said, we want to secure love, we're actually getting in the way of the other person tapping into their own resilience, their own wisdom, and their own well-being. So we're not doing anybody any favors, and we're certainly not doing ourselves any favors, because we are, in fact, as I say, broadcasting to a narcissistic type that we will negate our own needs to take care of them. So boy, I sped through that really fast. I would love to open it up for any questions, anything you've heard that you would like more clarity on. So. Sharon, you know I'm going to call on you. You're my faithful. I've actually, Thea raised a hand. Oh, okay. Sharon's got a thumb. You're going to come next, Sharon. Okay, Thea. Hi, lovely. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. That was awesome, and I think you're spot on all of those things. And I have been in the world of narcissistic codependency awareness now for about 5 years, and you just completely nailed it on the head. And I really appreciate it. And I was just a little late. I couldn't get on Zoom for a minute, so I think I missed the principles that you opened with, but I don't know if you could put those in the chat, but it was fantastic, and I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. That's wonderful. I'm not sure when you came in, so I'm not sure what I started off saying either, but yeah, basically the understanding I found was called the three principles after years of suffering myself and years of therapy and years of being on a spiritual path too. I mean, I moved here from the UK when I was 21, and I loved it. I mean, it was like this sort of mecca for self-help and spirituality and things like that. And I sort of dove in really deep. And I heard a lot of the same things that the principles say, but for some reason it just, and I did a master's in spiritual psychology. Things definitely filtered in and helped. And my therapy definitely helped me make sense of my childhood and how it contributed to my constantly being attracted to narcissistic types. I was abandoned by my father at a very early age. He lived a couple of miles down the road, so it wasn't like he was completely gone. I would pass him in the street, but he would ignore us. So I had this belief that if he didn't love me, then it must have meant that I wasn't lovable. Now as an adult that's 63 years old, I can actually see that that's not true. But I believed that for the first 50 years of my life. I didn't question it. It's because I wasn't lovable. So I was always attracted to these unavailable men that I was just reenacting my childhood. I always say we like to have a do-over. So we're attracted to the same type, hoping that we can do things differently and get a different outcome. But the reason I'm talking about this subject today is because I think that I always say to my clients that, narcissists have a very high level of entitlement. And so it's like a teeter-totter. So the narcissist is up here with a very high level of entitlement, and the codependent is down here with no entitlement. So it's the perfect match. But as we raise our level of entitlement, who we're attracted to is healthy as well. So it's really important. And I'm not talking about arrogance and thinking we're superior to anybody else, but to just really see our value, see that we deserve to be treated with respect, see that we are resilient and that we have everything inside us we need in us. So we're not dependent on other people. So that's pretty much, I think, what the principles did for me. So I'll just take this opportunity that if I'm going to stay on for the hour. I want lots more questions and comments or anything. This is a nice interactive discussion here. But I did want to say, if you are interested in learning more about what I teach here, I do a 6-week program that starts next Saturday. If you are interested in signing up with it, there's a discount for today. And there's an additional 30-minute one-on-one session where I really get to, hear about you personally, your struggles and what you'd like to see. And then we can incorporate that into that 6-week program. And you can go on my website at Adey-Jones.com and you can look it up there and sign up there for the one-on-one session as well. So I hope that answered your question there, because I know you said you missed some of the beginning. All right, great, lovely, thank you. And hi, Kelly, you got your hand up. Oh, Sharon, you're doing good today. We got others. Hi, Kelly, how are you?
Hey. Well, obviously I'm working with you, but I was wondering if you had any suggestions on helping us with our self-esteem and to get in a better place.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny because I spent my life trying to raise my self-esteem from the outside in. I just everything. I mean, besides, God, as women, well, I shouldn't say every woman, but I know. I mean, I certainly, I spent a lot on trying to look good, either clothes, makeup, whatever I was doing. So on the physical outside, I tried to gain self-esteem by looking okay, because I believed I was fat and ugly and unlovable. the other thing I did was I just kept taking more and more classes, more and more certifications. And I kept believing, and I always say they were like band-aids on my walls, just covering up my gaping wounds of insecurity. It was like another certification, and I'll feel good enough, and I'll feel lovable, and I'll believe in myself, and my confidence will raise. So I spent so much money and so much time again on the outside in. I'll be better when, I'll be better then, a bit more of this, a bit more of this. And the more that I just kept realizing that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and that there's not a person on the planet that is a bit more spiritual than anybody else. Some people may be a little more aware, but but at our essence, we are all 100% equal. And the more that I kept sitting in that place and seeing the truth of that, I naturally started feeling more confident. It just, that's the way it happens. It's never doing more. It's actually doing less. It's doing less and sitting back and feeling it from the inside. Oh my God, I am equal to everybody else. I mean, I could say that before and it'd be up here. It would be a mantra. It wouldn't be a truth. These days, it's a truth. And if I hear anything that contradicts that, I know it's coming from a busy mind. I know it's not truth. Anything that says that these days, oh, you're getting a bit old and wrinkled or a bit fat, I'm just like, oh, that's an interesting thought that's flowing by, because that's just a thought that me in my little human suit has. It's not the truth of who I am. It's not who I am at my essence. And when Sydney, I heard this from Dick and Bettinger, and I haven't heard it, I haven't read it or heard it on Sid's tapes, but Sid said we were 96% spiritual and 4% human. And I think what he's trying to say is that the majority of us, the vast majority of us, are these spiritual beings. And we just show up in this world of form, in this wonderful, lovely, quirky little earth suits that we all have. They're all a little different. Some are fatter, some are skinnier, some are taller, some are shorter, different colors, whatever we are. That's just a tiny expression of who we really are. Any insecurity, any insecure thoughts of I'm not good enough or low self-esteem are just coming from that little human part of ourselves. Just forgot who we are for a moment. It just got caught up in its personal thinking. So, because the truth of who we are would never, ever have insecure thoughts, would never think we're less than, would never judge ourselves harshly. Just wouldn't. It's made of love and peace and acceptance. So that's to me, that is the only real way we will ever raise our self-esteem, is looking in this direction. That's why my programs are called a spiritual solution, because as I said, psychology can help so much, and it helped me a lot, but it was really looking at my life through my spiritual, my lens, through that way, not the human lens, that I was able to really see the truth of who I was. So without that spiritual side, I don't think that we can really genuinely ever recover from codependency unless we recognize who we really are at our essence. So
I love that. I love that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. It's lovely to see you, Kelly.
You too.
Thank you. Okay. Does anybody else have anything they would like to share? Okay, Sherry.
Sorry, I was trying to find the unmute button. Thank you so much for that. It was very, very insightful. And, I was reflecting on my marriage, which I'm out of, thankfully, to definitely a narcissist. And, and all kind of like the process of getting out of it was in realizing some of these things, but at the same time, the thing that worries me, so I have a son who is almost 15 years old, and when I divorced my ex-husband, I became very aware of the fact that, great, I get to get out of it, but he still has to deal with that, and he's at a very impressionable age. And so I'm wondering if you have any tips or any help on how do I help him not fall into those same traps, so that maybe he can avoid having that in his future.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have children too. I have 2 sons, and I completely understand that concern. I think the important thing to acknowledge is that, just as I was saying earlier, that we all come into this world of form with an inner guidance system, this wisdom that is guiding us. We have resilience and we have well-being, and our children do too. And that doesn't mean that we sort of hands off abandon them, but when we see that they have that in them, they see it for themselves too. We help them see it. We're reflecting that back to them. The second thing is they will understand what's going on. I know at the time it doesn't seem that they do. Sometimes we're afraid for them, that we're afraid that they may be picking up some of the behaviors. We're afraid that they may be suffering from having a narcissistic parent, which is incredibly painful. As we know, narcissistic parents see their children as extensions of them. They don't see them as separate little beings, their own selves to live their own lives. It's all about them. And are you reflecting well on me? Do I approve of how you're living your life? Those are very, very challenging things to grow up with. But having said that, the fact that you are separated or don't live together, you can, your child is going to have the advantage of seeing a healthy parent that loves them, respects them, and sees them as as a separate little being. And they're going to see what it feels like when they're not seen and heard and loved for their separate little being. And they will be able to differentiate and go, hang on a minute, this feels good, this doesn't feel good. This is the truth, that's not the truth. So, it's, again, I don't know if I'm answering it clear enough for you, but they will survive. They will be great. They will see the truth of what's going on, especially having you, be able to help them, not by ever bad mouthing the other parent or saying negative things about them, because we always know that that's, a child deserves to be loved regardless by 2 parents. And our relationship may have been a certain way, but their relationship with their parent is for them to navigate and carve out how they want. But having said that, they do have this wisdom inside them. They're going to be able to tell that this is not healthy and this is healthy. And we have to trust that. So hopefully that was helpful to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, okay. All right. Does anybody else have anything they would like to say or share? Or we have a lot of off cameras today.
I shall speak.
It's Sharon.
Hi.
Hi.
Well, definitely I would love to recommend your course to everybody, because obviously I've done the course, which I did for my daughter because she was in an abusive relationship. So I wanted to know more. So I definitely highly recommend it, because it actually opened up to me what I could see more throughout relationships throughout my life. Mm-hmm. So yeah, very beneficial. And I'd love if you could say a little bit more on the boundaries again, because that feels real present for me.
Yeah.
Lately, of that deserving to be respected. And until you spoke it, I thought, oh, there's still that element of over forgiving that I'm doing, and it's okay, and I can feel myself and know that I'm coming up in myself to feel that I am able to speak and it's okay to speak. So yeah, I'd love if you just say a little bit more on that, if that was okay.
Yeah, I love that, and thank you for bringing that up. And also just, I love that you just shared that. Oh, something, there's remnants of something there. Believe it or not, just a few days ago, I realized I had still shame around being seen and heard. It was a shadow of mine. I had no idea. I was like, it popped up in something I was doing, and I was like, oh, I have some shame around wanting to be seen and heard. And I was talking to one of my mentors, and they were like, well, that's part of surviving as a child, is to be seen and heard. If a child doesn't cry and ask to be seen and heard, they could die, of hunger. So there are certain things that we, and I bring that up because it surprised me too. I'm like, oh my God, I'm still carrying that around. This, that it's not good to be seen and heard. But I love what you brought up, the same thing with the boundaries. It's like, and I think with this conditioning, and especially, I'll say it here, especially for women, good little girls, put other people ahead of themselves. They don't make things messy and dirty. And so we're sort of trained a little bit to overly accommodate, to be overly nice, to, and I'm not saying that men don't struggle with this too. I think a lot of men do, but I think culturally, it's a little harder on women. So we have to look back at some of the conditioning we have just as a society, never mind what happened within our family. So as I said, if we grow up in an abusive household, and again, innocently, our parents were always doing the best they could. They just were. Best they could doesn't mean it was good enough. I always say that. It's not to judge them, but it's also not to minimize some of the things we went through. I still remember feeling bad for having boundaries when I was a child, bad for saying, no, don't do that. I don't want to do that. Or I don't want it, whatever it was. I felt shame around having a boundary. Boundaries are healthy. Boundaries are what keep us alive. Boundaries are what, as I talk about this in the 6 weeks I talk about like the internal boundary that we need for ourselves as well, not just the external boundary that we don't want somebody else to cross. So boundaries, number one, we have a right to them. They're healthy. I think other people need to know when our boundaries feel like they've been ignored or pushed up against. I think it's respectful to speak our truth and just say, hang on a minute, I said that was a line that I didn't want crossed. You crossed it. Can we talk about this? Again, it depends whether we're talking about boundaries within our personal relationships, our friendships, our children. Boundaries are really, a good thing. They let us all know how to play together, nicely in the sandbox. So ask me more about, Sharon, what did you want to hear more about boundaries in a particular area?
More, not just where I couldn't do that in previous relationships, but what I realized is actually overspilled into life as well. Mm-hmm. And in a situation at the moment, and until you said that, I thought, yeah, I'm still trying to be too forgiving or understanding. So it's kind of opened it up into general that I feel, again, because of my own past, etc., there is that childhood bit of not wanting to speak up and be heard, but feeling it is okay to be heard. I'm going totally off track of the question you are, because it all just kind of comes together. It just kind of hit me when you said that, and it's like, and when you said just now about speaking our truth, and that made me tingle. I thought, because sometimes we don't see our growth, or we don't see our learning curve within things. And when you spoke that, and it made me tingle, and I thought, oh, since I've last, it's been a while since we've connected, it's like, actually, I am speaking my truth.
Yeah.
And that is okay to speak that, whereas I wouldn't have before. So until we're having this conversation, I hadn't even noticed that, yeah, I am able to do that, because what's important for me too is important.
Yeah, that's great. And it's true. It's like, you know, that speaking your truth, that entitlement, the word entitlement comes up again. For me, it's like, I had such little entitlement. I didn't feel entitled to speak my truth. I didn't feel entitled to put myself first by holding a boundary. Like you said, overly forgiving all the time, making excuses, because I was so used to sort of pushing myself to the side and making it all about the other person. It's like, oh, the other person's suffering. Oh, look, they're sorry, they're sad. They're sorry they just did that awful thing to me. I have to forgive them. Because I had no sense of entitlement. No part of me that was like, you know what, that should not have happened. And you're abusive and you're not entitled to come and be in my life because you don't respect me. It was always about, are they okay? You know, again, it's like, have I hurt them? Am I being cruel to them? And it's like, no, I'm just saying this is not good. I'm not accepting this behavior. So yeah, it does. It all comes from that sense of self. That knowing that we are equal to everybody else. And when we're equal to everybody else, we matter just as much as everybody else. We
don't. I think what you said earlier to one of the ladies earlier as well about, you know, each person, you know, we all have got our own wisdom to be able to deal with what comes there. And that really spoke to me as well, because initially I joined the course because of my daughter being in an abusive relationship and learned so much about, you know, mine. And that was one of the things that helped her so much, that the person she kept trying to help give, yeah, that at some point she had nothing left to give. And for her to see that he had his own wisdom to help himself, and it was really interesting what happened from that, when she just gave that little bit of space of letting his own wisdom come through. Yeah. And I know you go into more of that, you know, in your course. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's so misguided, you know. We think we're doing the best thing by rescuing, but sometimes we're just getting in the way of them actually seeing their own power, their own strength, their own resilience. We have to sort of like sit back a bit. And often too, you know, when we go into that rescuing mode, we're actually trying to self-soothe. we're trying to make them feel better so that we can feel better, because we're so enmeshed with them. But when we can, where's my little snow globe that I love? When we can see that we're all living in these little separate realities, and we don't have to, you know, their reality doesn't have to be our reality. We can just witness them feeling their own thinking, knowing that they will eventually settle, knowing that if they're all caught up in the little snow globe, that, you know, they've lost sight of who they are, that beautiful Buddha within, they've lost sight of it for a moment, but we don't have to go in there and, you know, mess it around and try and control it. It will settle, they will calm down, and we can just stand over here and we can just let them be, trusting that they, like we said, they have everything within them. They're going to be okay. And our job, this is the other thing that we do a lot in this world, is we basically give our, not that, with my heart here. Oops. But, you know, we give our hearts to other people to take care of. It's like, here, take my heart. And then we start guarding over them, like, are you taking care of my heart like I would take care of my heart? Are you doing a good job with my heart? Well, you know, if we, and again, we can call it selfish, but if we take care of our own heart, and we're the minders of our own heart, because only we can take better care of our hearts than anybody else can. When we do that, we're letting other people off the hook. We're not setting them up for failure. So they can take care of their hearts. We're lovely to them, we're kind to them, but we're not in charge of them. And we're in charge of ourselves and our own hearts. And we'll take care of ourselves like we are the most important person on earth, not the second most important person, but the most important person. So
I don't know, we went off on a lot of tangents there, Sharon, but
Well, I think that just gave me almost like a final piece to a jigsaw, what you've just said about the heart. 'Cause I've never thought of it like that.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Yeah, we've been trained to believe that we're selfish if we take care of ourselves. And it's not selfish, it's actually, oh gosh, we're having somebody join very late here. But yeah, it's very important that we do that. And then we're free to be so, our love is unconditional then. When we're giving our hearts to other people to take care of, it's unconditional. It's like, oh, you better do it this way, you better take care of it, that's conditional love. But when we're taking care of our own hearts and we just share from that place, that's unconditional love. So, anybody else? Cami, I haven't seen you in a long time. Do you want to join us?
Hi,
Hi, Cami. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good.
Oh, good. It's good
I'm
to
doing
see
a
you.
lot better.
Oh, great, great.
I've started a Mary Kay business. I'm building my confidence up.
Lovely. I can see it shows. It shows on your demeanor. You look like you are doing a lot better. So I'm very happy to hear that. Is there anything you heard today? Anything that resonated with you or you'd like to share or ask a question about?
I don't really have questions, but everything you said, setting the boundaries, learning to love myself from the inside,
Yeah.
those I'm starting to do.
Lovely. Yeah. Yeah, it's always, I'll just leave you with this as well. We spend our days floating between what I call, it's in my, some people call it Dantian, womb space, gut, whatever it is. That's for me where I feel the spiritual essence of who I am, the truth of who I am. That's where my wisdom sits, very much sort of just below the belly button towards the spine, just sits there. And then I have this personal mind with very busy mind with a lot of thinking going on. And we spend our days drifting between getting caught up in our personal thinking and then falling back down into the truth of who we are. Who we are as spiritual beings is it's not anything to find or to search for or to gain. It's who we are. We're there all the time. All that happens is every now and again, we get caught up in some thinking, and our personal minds are the ones that has all insecurities. It has things like it's always reflecting on the past. It has regrets, and then it has fear of the future. It's very busy telling us stories. So when we listen to some of those stories, we don't feel very good. We feel like a bit yucky inside. That's great. That's our internal little alarm bell that goes, oops, you're listening to that thinking again. And then we go, oh yeah, that's right. I'm not that thinking. I'm not those things. And then we keep falling back into that place that we are within, that beautiful space, knowing that we are made of love. We are perfect just as we are. So the more that we can keep recognizing we're floating all day long, backwards and forwards. There's no shame in being up here. That's what we do. That's what humans do. Can't stop it. It's always going to happen. But we're just going to keep waking up and falling back in. And as we keep waking up and falling back in, our confidence keeps growing and growing and growing naturally. So you're on the right path.
Thank you.
I'm very happy for you. So Kelly, you still have your hand up, and so does Thayer. I don't know if you still have a question or it's from before.
No, I have a question. So
Sure.
I've gotten better about speaking up, but then there's extreme guilt afterwards. Do you have any recommendations on how to help with that?
Okay, so when you speak up, where is that coming from? Is that coming from your personal mind or from your wisdom, from your higher self? Where is that coming from when you speak your mind?
Well, if I speak up about my needs and how I feel like I want things to be a certain way, or how I feel, I'm not sure where it's coming from. But
Well,
afterwards, I'll beat myself up about speaking up because I feel like I should just not ever say anything to anybody about anything.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. So what I would say to you is when you speak up about what your needs are from an empowered, respectful place, not, you know, if you are not being abusive or derogatory or whatever it is, when you express a need and a want, you're just coming from an empowered place of this is how I would like, this is what I would like in my relationship. That to me is coming from your higher, that place inside, that wisdom, as I'll call it, that part of you that knows what you would like, and you're asking for those needs to be met. They're important to you. Now, when you come from that place, there is no guilt. Guilt cannot exist from that place. Guilt comes from the personal mind. That comes from chatter that goes, oh, shouldn't be asking for that. Oh, that's bad. No, you're bad if you say this. Oh, it's chatter, 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 chatter. And that's where guilt is coming from. It's a judgment. From our authentic selves, our essence of who we are, there is no judgment. You're just sharing yourself. You're just sharing your preferences, what you'd like in life. As I say, if it's shared from a loving place of, I'm sharing me with you. I'm sharing things with you that are important to me in a relationship. That's not, as I say, it's not putting somebody down. It's not attacking. There's nothing negative about that. You're just sharing authentically who you are and what your preferences in a relationship are. So there is no guilt coming from that place. The guilt is coming from here. The guilt is coming from a place of probably some history where you start to say, oh, remember last time you did this, you messed it all up. Oh my God, why did you do this? It's coming from this. It's coming from the ego that's only trying to help. I mean, our egos, I love my ego. I'm not afraid of my ego. I see that my ego absolutely thinks it's doing the best thing for me. It really honestly thinks it's like, I got this, I'm in charge, I'm going to make sure you're safe, I'm going to take care of you. The thing is, it's messing up my life. But I don't get angry, I don't put it down. I just think, oh, you know, poor thing, you think you're being helpful, but you're not. So if my ego was to say something like, oh, you shouldn't do that, you should feel guilty about that, I just go, oh, that's just an innocent ego thought that's just trying to be helpful. It's not helpful. Being true to myself is helpful. Again, as I say, if we are communicating in a loving, respectful way, our truth, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong at all. In fact, it's admirable. It's courageous when we can share ourselves in that way.
I like that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
I'm going to remember that.
I'll remind you next week.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Anybody else here? Anybody else have anything they would like to say or share? Gracie, you came on late. Unfortunately, we started at 10 a.m. Pacific time this morning. So I don't know if you have anything you want to just share or... Nope. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. This has been wonderful. Again, as I said, if you're interested in learning more about my 6-week program, I highly recommend you go to my website. You can learn more about it there. And again, as I said, there is a discount and an early bird special. And for people that signed up, I am giving a one-on-one session. So, okay, I think we are done unless there's any last minute things you'd like to share. Oh,
Thank you for everything.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right, well, it was one, oh, hang on, sorry. Sorry, I'm just reading the chats here before I drop out. Okay, wonderful. Okay, well, definitely, Gracie, reach out to me. I would love to. Thank you, Thea. Thank you for everybody for your questions, your comments, for contributing to this conversation. And I hope to see you all again soon. All right, lovely. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.